In the first Pokemon video, I talked about changes to the main cast, and in the second, I talked about some of the Pokemon-based options for characters. This video is going to cover the human cast member options, along with my final thoughts for the series. These have to get a bit more creative. Pokemon and humans don't fight each other in the Pokemon universe. Humans don't really fight at all in the Pokemon universe. Finding a human character with potential in a series where human characters are terrified of fighting Pidgeys is a little bit more of a challenge. You'll have to work with me a bit on this one. These are more akin to concepts that could work rather than ideal character options. I'm pretty much throwing ideas at the wall here and seeing what sticks. For inspiration, I'm looking towards other fighting games and some of the non-standard character options they've used. There's a common character archetype in fighting games that doesn't really have a true equivalent in Smash Bros. They're more common in crossover fighting games, and it's type of moveset that tends to get applied to more comical characters where it might be hard to make a true moveset. For lack of a better term, you might call them group characters, characters that use assistants as part of their moveset. I'm not really sure if there's a name for this kind of character in the fighting game community. I did a little bit of research, but I wasn't able to find anything. Frank West from Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Tatsunoko vs. Capcom is a great example of what I'm talking about. Dororo, also from Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, is another one. A lot of their moves aren't actually them attacking on their own. They're making use of other characters as projectiles, traps, or just basic attacks. You're essentially playing as multiple characters while only controlling one in the group. The other characters exist only as move animations, not as fully controllable characters. There are a couple of pseudo-examples in Smash Bros. The main one is Olimar and his Pikmin, but the Ice Climbers could also be seen as a variation with how Popo and Nano work. This could provide a basis for a Pokemon character. It could pretty much be any kind of trainer, but I like to go with a Pokemon Ranger. Pokemon Ranger is a spin-off series, but the concept of the character is present throughout all of the Pokemon games. The Ranger would be a physical fighter, not a character sitting in the back like the Pokemon trainer. Instead of punching or kicking or using weapons, the Ranger would momentarily summon a Pokemon to use as an attack. The Ranger's up B might be riding a bird Pokemon, the side B seeing a Pokemon shoot a projectile or using a dash attack, etc. The animations for the moves would just have the Pokemon appear briefly to attack and then disappear. Think of the character as a combination between Snake and Olimar, one that uses momentary summons as traps or stand-ins to attack. The character could even make use of a concept similar to Olimar, in which random Pokemon follow them around to perform different moves, with these different Pokemon having a slightly different outcome in what move ends up coming out. I also think it's a concept that could kind of work as a human battling trainer, a human fighter that uses attacks based around concepts from Pokemon. They could climb an escape rope for an upwards move, they could toss a Pokeball to damage the opponents, maybe with a random Pokemon doing more or less damage, like Peach's Radishes. He could spray Repel Spray, use the Mystic Flute to put enemies to sleep, yada yada yada. Think Mr. Game & Watch, or the Animal Crossing villager. Goofy-looking moves that aren't really attacks. These kind of random animations, in concert with using Pokemon for certain moves, could make for a decent character. A similar concept would work with one of the characters from Pokemon Conquest. Conquest was a crossover between Pokemon and Nobunaga's Ambition. Go figure. The main character from that game, either male or female, possibly female for the roster diversification, could make a good candidate. Obviously, a bunch of medieval weaponry could make for good moveset fodder. But more relevant to Pokemon is that the main character has an Eevee as their primary Pokemon, and all of the other possible forms of Eevee along with it. I already went over Eevee, so I don't think I need to cover that again. This would basically just be a character like Ike or Marth, but with Pokemon-themed attacks and animations. Kind of a cop-out as a Pokemon character, but it's an idea. There's another character that might work here as well, N. N is probably one of the only named characters from the Pokemon video games with any kind of a personality or fanbase. Black and White were really the only games with a focus on the plot, and N was the antagonist for much of that game. So in that sense, N's a great option since he actually represents the collective villains in the series, as one of the very few characters that's had a lot of effort put into his story and persona. He's also known for using a wide variety of Pokemon, which could mean including pretty much whatever the developers would want to include, while still having it make sense in character. That's something true of the above-mentioned ideas as well. They can use whatever Pokemon the developers want them to, so covering all the different generations and elemental types would be a piece of cake. For a moveset, N could combine any of the ideas from the other two humans I presented. He's presented as a friend of nature and Pokemon, so random Pokemon just helping him out in the field would make sense in character. He could also be an alternate take on the Pokemon Trainer. Instead of using a set team of Pokemon, a new random Pokemon is sent out each time one of yours gets knocked out from a small pool that he uses. This is an incredibly unrealistic idea, and it would be a huge sink for resources, but as a person who enjoys randomness in fighting games, it's something that I'd love to play. Finally, we get to the Pokemon Trainer. As I mentioned before, this is a hard character to nail down. It's a great concept, and it probably shouldn't get cut from the game. The problem is that there's a lot of work that goes into making a character with multiple movesets, and that ideally, the first generation of Pokemon shouldn't be the only one getting a lot of representation in Smash Bros. To that end, there's a lot of ways that the Pokemon Trainer could be taken. Just to run down the list of possible options, there's keeping the character exactly the same, the easiest choice with the least amount of work. They could base a new Pokemon Trainer off of Pokemon from a different generation, or multiple generations, choosing to represent something other than Generation 1. The most likely would probably be Generation 6, but ironically enough, that might swing the other direction and have too many representatives for Generation 6, assuming we also get a Mega Mewtwo or equivalent representation for Gen 6, which is probably pretty likely. They could base the trainer off of a character from the series and use their Pokemon. This would work best with one of the regional champions, who have unique Pokemon across a wide range of different types. Again, the problem is picking one of these to use over any one of the others. Characters like Lance or Cynthia would work, but they're still not very notable. They could go the villain route and base the character off of one of the series' evil teams, like Team Rocket or Team Galactic, using Pokemon appropriate to them. To go along with the dark theme, a villain trainer could use a rotation of fighting, dark, and psychic type Pokemon instead of fire, grass, and water. It's a concept that probably won't happen unless there's also already a good guy trainer in the game. Finally, they could just have the player choose their Pokemon roster on the select screen. Make a small number of Pokemon as playable characters, then have the player choose 3 of them to use. This is a cool idea, and I've seen people post some interesting concepts for it, but it's incredibly unrealistic in terms of the amount of effort it would take in order to work. A possible riff on this might just be having the Pokemon Trainer be the only selectable Pokemon representative in the game. From there, all of the Pokemon that have been playable in Smash Bros. Would just be selectable characters for his team, along with maybe a few more to balance out the roster. This is one of the concepts that I've seen that I really like, but again, it's very, very unrealistic. I think that's just about everything, but I'm probably missing something. Let me know in the comments. So, with all that done, a quick recap of these Pokemon videos. We currently have Pikachu, Jigglypuff, Lucario, and the Pokemon Trainer in Brawl. We had Mewtwo and Pichu in Melee, but both were cut. I've suggested Eevee, Mega Mewtwo, possibly with alternate costumes for different Pokemon, a Legendary Dragon, a Pokemon Ranger, the lead from Pokemon Conquest, N, and several alternate ideas for the Pokemon Trainer. Now for the actual roster. Both the roster I think is likely and the roster that I personally want. First, my actual prediction. Pikachu is obvious. Jigglypuff is also a pretty sure bet, mostly because I think it's easy to make and its history with Smash Bros. Sakurai loves his quirky characters, and this definitely qualifies as one of them. I also don't think we're going to lose the character slot occupied by Lucario. I don't think it'll be Lucario, but likely a Pokemon with a similar playstyle in the same way that Mewtwo was replaced by Lucario. I think I'll also say the same for the Pokemon Trainer. He'll probably be there, but altered in some way from what we've seen before. Pokemon has the same issue faced by The Legend of Zelda. Once you go beyond the most obvious and easy characters, there's so many B-level characters that none of them stand out by comparison. From a production standpoint, it's easier to just avoid that hornet's nest entirely and be satisfied with what works. Were I to make my own ideal roster, I'd do things a bit differently. I don't really like Pikachu all that much, but it's a necessity for Pokemon. I'd cut Jigglypuff, but roll most of its moveset back into Eevee, and have the two play similarly, except for Eevee's moves having elemental properties. For Eevee's evolutions, I'd just do alternate costumes. I'd also do the same thing for the Lucario slot. Swap out Lucario for Mewtwo as the main slot, and then have Pokemon from different generations as costumes. I'd keep the Pokemon Trainer, but update them to the modern generation using the new starters, and ideally make them play as close to the Pokemon Trainer from Brawl as I could. The final character I'd do would be the Pokemon Ranger idea. This is admittedly just my personal preference, but I did some random doodles, and the character somehow became this weird combination of Kamina and Steve Irwin as a Pokemon Trainer, and I like it too much as a concept to drop it. Feel free to ignore it, or substitute it for whatever your own crazy idea might be. I wasn't originally going to put it in here, but in writing this I kinda grew to like the concept, and I do think it could work as a playstyle. That ideal roster might seem like a lot, but that final Pokemon Ranger character is the only one of those that's actually completely new. Pikachu returns as is, Eevee is a reimagining of Jigglypuff in a character that makes a bit more sense to use, Mewtwo is returning, but it maintains a similar style to both itself from Melee and Lucario from Brawl, and the Pokemon Trainer is trying to be as similar as possible to the Brawl version of the character, even though it's using new Pokemon. Having seen via leaks the final forms for 6th generation starters, I'm thinking Fennekin, Quilladin, and Greninja. All of that is only a total of 5 slots for Pokemon, one more than the series currently has. Pikachu is the series mascot, Eevee works for the entire series, as do Mewtwo's costumes, and the Pokemon Trainer works for the current generation. The Ranger works as a catch-all for anything else that needs to be represented, and can include whatever Pokemon nods or references desire that the above doesn't get around to. Furthermore, these concepts can easily be updated in subsequent versions of Smash Bros. To easily incorporate new Pokemon and forms. Eevee and Mewtwo add costumes, and the Ranger can change up his Pokemon while still keeping the same move. The Trainer can also get his new set of Pokemon. Definitely let me know what you think on this one. Pokemon's such an open series that I know I probably missed a few, so I'd like to hear about it. I'm probably going to revisit Pokemon at some point in the future after X and Y release to see how they're doing and see the final roster for those games, so my list might get updated at that time. Thank you for watching, and I will have a new video out for Smash Bros. Next week.